Discover the amazing moment a billionaire caught his black nanny dancing with his autistic son. It's a viral story that plays out behind the walls of David Sterling's opulent mansion in suburban Atlanta. As a tech entrepreneur, David has transformed a mere idea into a billion-dollar empire, filling his life with luxury and societal recognition. Yet as he approaches home after a grueling day of meaningless meetings, a deep loneliness looms. Pushing through the grand entrance, he locks eyes with a scene that stops him cold: Max, his 8-year-old son, twirling with Naomi, their African-American nanny. The music spills from speakers, setting a tone that seems forgotten in David's crisp, corporate world. For that fleeting moment, as he watches Naomi's effortless joy against the backdrop of expensive art, the ghost of longing stirs within him that he catches himself feeling a flicker of something, a revelation, perhaps. Naomi seems to provide what he struggles to. In a world where his wealth grants him access, the emotional connection with his son slips through his fingers, leaving him to question if he is merely a provider rather than a parent. Over the following days, David witnesses the transformative effects of Naomi's care on Max. Each note played on the piano by his son ignites a spark of realization, and music emerges as a language to bridge their expansive divide. Yet, as Max advances, David hesitates, torn between the new, awakening bond and the suffocating demands of his business life. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue, but peace is an illusory guest in David's mansion. As whispers of a corporate scandal unravel, his carefully crafted existence hangs by a thread. Each meeting becomes a battleground, colleagues aligning themselves with the narrative of protection over ethics, viewing Naomi as just another pair of hands rather than the lifeline she has become for Max. With every accusation hurled at him, David feels the walls of privilege closing in tighter, constricting his ability to reach out, to be genuinely present in both business and family life. At night, quiet thoughts spin unrestfully in his mind. What does it mean to save his empire at the expense of his family? Each passing day intensifies his turmoil, driving a wedge between the man he thought he was and the father he aspires to be. As fear grips him, he learns that Naomi is considering a job opportunity elsewhere. Panic washes over David, the thought of losing her warms him to the core of his fears. With every anxious breath, he recognizes his looming choice: safeguard the wealth he believes stabilizes their lives or dare to forge a new path that might redefine their family dynamic entirely. Caught in the crosshairs of uncertainty and longing, David's heart races quicker than his mind can comprehend as the stakes rise unbearably. As he stands on the precipice of a decision that could alter everything, he realizes he isn't just fighting for his company, he is fighting for the essence of belonging, a truth he dared to overlook in the chaos of life. In that moment, a question echoes within him: can he truly secure the life he wants for Max? The answer teeters on the brink of revelation. David stood at the edge of his lavish office, the city skyline glittering beyond the glass walls that surrounded him. His mind was a storm, swirling with thoughts that felt like jagged pieces of glass. Outside, the world continued its bustling rhythm, but inside, the dissonance between his professional obligations and personal awakening echoed loudly. Every corporate strategy he drafted felt less meaningful in the light of what he had witnessed at home. Naomi's laughter, simple and pure, resonated with a warmth that was far removed from the cold metrics by which he measured success at work. Max's piano melodies that danced through the rooms of their mansion filled him with a hope that he couldn't even begin to articulate. That hope wrestled with the fear of losing it all, of losing Naomi and the bond she nurtured between him and his son. As he pored over contracts and spreadsheets, David struggled to concentrate. Thoughts of the impending scandal felt like dark clouds ready to rain ruin on everything he had built. He was a man trapped in his own creation, surveilling his empire yet feeling utterly disconnected from the very essence of family happiness he had yearned to provide. The realization hit him hard: his empire had become a cage. He glanced at the clock. It was nearly time for Max's piano lesson. Naomi's laughter and guiding voice filled his mind. He stood abruptly, casting aside the charts that felt increasingly irrelevant. This was no longer a mere distraction, it was his urgent call to action. What good was a successful company if it atrophied the most important relationships in his life? Rushing home, David's mind churned rapidly. He could picture Max at the grand piano, his small fingers fluttering over the keys, while Naomi instructed him with patience and joy. She had entered their lives not just as help but as a beacon of light in dark times. The thought of potentially losing her ignited something deep within him. He needed to confront his fear, to face the choices that loomed ahead of him. In acting fast, perhaps he could thwart impending threats to both his business and family. David arrived home, breathless and eager. The house felt alive with music as he stepped inside. He followed the sounds to the music room, where he found Naomi seated beside Max, encouraging him with gentle nudges. The sight filled him with warmth, but it was also a reminder of a harsh reality. She had plans to leave, and he was immobilized by his own choices. "Naomi," David began, swallowing hard as their eyes met. The warmth of her smile faded slightly as he caught the flicker of concern in her gaze. "Can we talk?" The air was thick with unspoken words as they moved to a more private corner of the house. He needed to articulate the weight resting on his shoulders. Could he really blend the two vastly different worlds he navigated? The opulence of his empire and the vulnerability of fatherhood were battling within him, and there was no clear path ahead. What would he say by laying his heart bare? Would it push her away, or could it draw her in closer? The stakes were no longer just about business, it was about the very fabric of the family he had failed to nurture. Just as David prepared to reveal his vulnerabilities, his phone buzzed, an ominous alert interrupting the moment. He glanced down to see a notification about the scandal erupting in the media. A storm was brewing. The moment felt electrified, the tension palpable. Would he confront the whirlwind of scandal, or would he risk everything to protect the fragile bond he was beginning to form with his son and the woman who had helped bring it to light? He took a deep breath, ready to face what mattered the most as all his carefully constructed defenses began to crack. The moment of truth was before him. David felt the electricity in the air, charged with uncertainty and urgency. The notification about the scandal loomed like an ominous harbinger, threatening to destabilize everything he was beginning to cherish. The walls of his lavish mansion seemed to close in, and, for a brief moment, he considered retreating to the safety of his office, where spreadsheets and corporate jargon could provide solace. Yet, the thought of doing so felt like a betrayal to everything he had resolved to change. "David?" Naomi's voice broke through his spiraling thoughts, gently pulling him back. Her eyes searched his, filled with questions as well as concern. The fraction of a second that passed felt like a lifetime. He realized how badly he wanted to share the raw truth brewing within him. "Naomi, there is something I need to say," he began, feeling the weight of the world slip from his shoulders. He gestured to the ornate couch in the dimly lit sitting area, the plush upholstery a stark contrast to the heaviness of the conversation he knew was about to unfold. They settled into the intimate space, a world apart from the chaos outside. David found his voice. "Everything I've worked for, all the deals, the late nights, the endless pursuit of success, none of it matters if I can't be a father to Max and a partner to you." The admission stung, a vulnerability he hadn't allowed himself to explore before. But her gaze softened. Naomi could see the storms that brewed in his heart. "You don't need to bear this alone," she replied. "The world may expect you to be this impenetrable force, but you can choose who you want to be." David paused, the words rippling through him. "I'm trying, but the company, the scandal, it keeps pulling me back. I don't want to lose you, and I don't want Max to grow up resenting me for the choices I make now." Vulnerability was uncomfortable, yet there was a burgeoning strength in laying his fears bare. Naomi's brow furrowed thoughtfully, as if contemplating a labyrinthine puzzle. "Are you ready to create a new path? One that integrates both your roles without sacrificing either?" Her question cut through his chaos, landing squarely in the center of his reality. "Yes, but how?" The despair in his voice revealed just how lost he felt amidst his own wealth and success. It was as if he had climbed to the top of a mountain only to realize it was the wrong peak. Naomi reached for his hand, a simple gesture that felt monumental. Start by facing the scandal head-on. Don't hide behind your empire. Talk to your team, involve them in the solution, but also carve out time for what truly matters, Max, our family. Show him that success is not just measured in numbers but in love and connection. Her suggestion ignited something fierce within him, a resolve to redefine his priorities, to take ownership of not just who he was, but who he wanted to become. Could he be more than just a CEO? Could he embrace the role of a present father and a caring partner? As David contemplated this newfound perspective, the vibration of his phone sliced through the moment once more. It was a message from his operations manager outlining the next steps being taken regarding the unfolding scandal. A sense of dread gripped him, but alongside that dread was a burgeoning determination. The time had come to face the repercussions, to forge a new foundation built on honesty and connection. I'll fight to protect our family and take on this scandal, David resolved, his tone shifting to one of conviction. Naomi smiled, and in that moment, he recognized the paradox. By confronting his vulnerabilities in the business world, he could also emerge a stronger man at home. Yet as they made plans to tackle his corporate storm together, a lingering question overshadowed the conversation: would his efforts be enough to salvage the relationships he found himself desperately clinging to? The path ahead shimmered with uncertainty, but within that uncertainty, David sensed the thrill of new possibilities blossoming. What awaited him was a battle not just against an external threat, but also against his own past failures, each one a marker along the tumultuous journey of genuine self-discovery, where the stakes were immeasurable. The stage was set as David squared his shoulders for the impending confrontation, knowing all too well that this journey was only just beginning. Would he emerge as the leader he desired to be, or would past shadows continue to haunt him? David stood in front of a wall of glass that framed the sprawling cityscape, feeling the weight of the world resting on his shoulders. Each illuminated window in the distance ignited thoughts of potential betrayals and decisions that amounted to more than mere numbers. He knew the scandal would reach far beyond corporate gossip. It would challenge every facet of who he was. In the quiet of his study, David began pacing, the soft carpet beneath his feet offering little comfort. His instincts whispered to him that avoidance would only deepen the entanglement of his own life's narrative. Therefore, it was time for action, not just for himself, but for Naomi and Max. Yet, the enormity of what lay ahead was daunting, a mountain that felt insurmountable. He flipped open his laptop, each click reverberating with a combination of dread and anticipation. The very foundation of his company held the risk of crumbling under the pressure of external scrutiny. Yet the reality dawned on him that to secure the company and forge a path toward personal redemption, vulnerability had to be placed at the forefront. Be a leader of integrity, he murmured to himself, a new mantra forming in his mind. He recalled the conversations with Naomi, how she advocated for collective problem solving. He had built his career on control and absolute authority, but perhaps her insight was revolutionary. As he composed an email to his team, the words came slowly, as each sentence felt like an admission of guilt. Accountability demanded vulnerability, and inviting them into the solution was less about relinquishing power and more about enriching his leadership with new perspectives. We will confront this scandal as a united front, he typed, feeling a mixture of empowerment and fear course through him. But even as he clicked send, a nagging uncertainty lingered. Would his team respond with loyalty or doubt? Would they see him as the leader he aspired to be, or as a CEO grasping for some semblance of control amidst chaos? Deep within, he felt the scars of previous failures, the moments he had chosen to forge ahead in isolation, hoping his title would shield him from fragility. Noticing the late afternoon light casting long shadows across the room, David made a decision. He needed to reach out to someone he had long since brushed aside in the wake of his ambition: his operations manager, Derek, an individual whose innovative mind had often been underestimated due to his more reserved nature. David dialed the number, heart racing at the prospect of inviting fresh ideas and collaboration to combat the impending fallout. "Derek, it's David," he began, forcing his voice to remain steady. "I need your insights on managing the impending scandal." Each word felt like a step away from ego and into a shared responsibility. There was silence on the other end, and for a moment, David feared he had crossed an invisible line from which there might be no return. After a pause, Derek responded, his voice a mixture of surprise and hesitance. "Wow. I didn't expect that, but absolutely, let us discuss strategies." David felt a rush of relief mingling with the fading fear. Following their call, he contemplated the road ahead. By allowing Derek into the fold, he had also invited the possibility of evolution both for the company and himself. Perhaps he could embody the collaborative resilience Naomi had described, merging the heart of an empathetic father with the mind of a decisive leader. Later that evening, watching Max play with his toys on the floor, David felt a stirring within him. Here was a true measure of success. As he joined in, focusing purely on connection without distractions, a deeper understanding began to surface. His business challenges faded momentarily, revealing his determination to raise a son who valued emotional intelligence not just profitability. However, amid this intimacy, a question loomed: could he truly change? Could he transform those childhood wounds into stepping stones for a new legacy? As they laughed together, a notification beep pierced the moment, signaling the next email from his team. He knew it would bring news about the scandal, either a plan of action or chaos. David embraced the uncertainty of that moment, fully aware that his growth, both personally and professionally, would be tested in the crucible of coming days. What awaited him in that email could unravel everything or propel him forward. Would the response to his newfound honesty foster collaboration, or would it reveal fractures that had long gone unnoticed? With the stakes climbing, David braced himself for whatever lay beyond that simple click of a button. David sat at his desk, a sense of dread washing over him as he stared at the notification flashing across his laptop screen. The email from his team, marked urgent, taunted him with its potential to either dismantle or solidify the tenuous foundation upon which his leadership rested. His heart raced, an insistent reminder of the stakes involved. Discarding the whisper of fear, he clicked on the message. A moment that felt weighty, almost monumental. The words unfurled slowly before him. Some responses expressed concern and confusion, others support and suggestions. Yet, a recurring sentiment emerged: fear. The team was unsettled, at once eager to rally behind him but uncertain of the path forward. His stomach churned as he realized the depth of their investment in both him and the situation. They viewed him not just as a leader, but as an anchor in these turbulent waters. Now it was his turn to be an anchor for them. He felt a swell of responsibility. This was not merely about salvaging his position. It was about protecting a vision that had brought them all to this point. With a deep breath, he responded to the email, expressing his appreciation for their honesty and encouraging open dialogue throughout the chaotic days ahead. As he hit send, he felt slightly more grounded, buoyed by the realization that they might weather this storm together. The next day, he called for an impromptu meeting. Inviting everyone into the conference room felt pivotal, a step that allowed them to confront their fears and uncertainties collectively. David paced the sleek, stainless steel of the conference room table, gauging their expressions, storing their unspoken questions in the recesses of his mind. "Thank you all for coming," he began, scanning the room. "I know the recent news has created a ripple that reaches us all." He could sense the tension, an amalgamation of anxiety and hope. "This is an opportunity for us, a chance to redefine how we want to navigate through this as a team." Words flowed with a newfound clarity. Embracing vulnerability, he recounted his missteps, sharing his journey and the lessons derived from his earlier ego-driven choices. The act was both liberating and terrifying. Each vulnerable admission struck a chord, fostering the kind of connection he had previously shied away from. His openness sparked a dialogue, igniting a sense of camaraderie. People began to share their concerns, ideas, and even suggestions tailored to tackle the emerging crisis. Derek's insights were invaluable, addressing the operational mechanics of managing the fallout. Each voice added a brushstroke to the canvas of their collective strategy. With each passing moment in that meeting, David felt a gravitational pull towards authenticity, an unraveling of defenses he had once clung to. He realized that leading was never about being flawless. Rather, it resided in showcasing resilience and the willingness to confront adversity shoulder to shoulder with partners, not subordinates. As the discussions waned, a deep-seated resolve began to solidify within him. He had not only opened a pathway to collaboration but also embraced the essence of what it meant to lead with integrity, to invite others into his vulnerabilities, allowing for growth through collective insight. Later that evening, he found himself in the living room with Max, who showed no signs of comprehending the turmoil just outside their front door. Instead of dwelling on the storm brewing in his career, David focused entirely on the laughter erupting from his son's joy. As Max narrated an extravagant imaginary adventure, David felt a burgeoning recognition. He didn't just want his son to witness a father who succeeded in business, he aspired for Max to know resilience and the courage to confront the unknown. But just as clarity emerged, a phone call disrupted the tranquility. It was Naomi, the urgency in her voice signaling tensions he had yet to face. The media was coming, and they had questions. Taken aback, David's heart hammered, and he thought, the time had come to face the scrutiny head-on. What emerged next would test not only his resolve but redefine who he was meant to become in the eyes of the world. David's breath hitched as he listened to Naomi's succinct words. "They're ready to come at us hard. We need a statement prepared. You're going to need to face this, David, and do it with strength." The line went dead, but the remnants of her urgency reverberated in the silence that followed. A weight settled on his shoulders, a familiar burden, but this time he recognized it for what it was, the relentless pressure of leadership. He felt a clenching in his stomach. It was that same mix of dread and determination that had settled in when he first opened that email. The invitation to scramble was gone. Now, it was time to confront the beast directly. He pushed the chair away and stood, pacing the hallway that overlooked the dusky skyline. Preparation loomed before him like an insurmountable wall. He grabbed a notepad and jotted down thoughts, half-formed ideas that ebbed and flowed in his mind. He needed to address not just the media but the heart of his team, reaffirming trust and reinforcing unity. As the evening darkened, he settled in front of his laptop, the glow illuminating his face. There was a fine line between vulnerability and assertiveness. David knew he had to harness both in crafting the statement. More than just words, this needed to be a testament to his evolution as a leader. As he typed, a revelation struck him. He was no longer chasing the facade of perfection. His imperfections were his foundation, now an experience-based pathway to honesty. His mind drifted to Max, the child who saw pure adventure in the simplest things. The thought brought warmth, lifting the immediate tension from his chest. Real leadership was about authenticity, not just about maintaining a pristine image. He felt empowered by this realization. He was ready to step into the spotlight, not merely to defend himself but to demonstrate the humanity at the core of his leadership. After hours of crafting the statement, he stepped back and read it aloud. "We commit to transparency and honesty. We are learning from our mistakes and constantly striving to do better for each other and our community. We hope to grow with your understanding." There was weight in those words, intentionality rooted in genuine growth. As he read, seeing the words manifest into life, he reflected on how far he had come. This was a refining moment, a step deeper into who he was meant to be. Yet, as he prepared for tomorrow's inevitable spotlight, doubt crept in. He could almost foresee the sharp questions, the critical gaze of the public. Would they see through his honesty? Would they accept his commitment to vulnerability as genuine? Sleep eluded him that night, questions wrapped around his mind like barbed wire. Just as he began to drift, a thought punctured through: what if they didn't accept it? The prospect of failure loomed large, pressing heavily against the successes he had slowly begun to build. The morning arrived with a chill, the anticipation electrifying in the air. Naomi's text lit up his phone: "Today is about truth. Go in ready to live it." David suited up, adrenaline coursing through him as he stepped outside, the first rays of sunlight spilling over the horizon. Today was different. It was not merely a day of defense. It was an opportunity to confront everything he both dreaded and desired. As he approached the building, the crowd of reporters loomed ahead like a tempest waiting to unleash. The throng of inquisitive eyes fell upon him, and suddenly he felt the weight of thousands of judgments hanging in the balance. Each step forward was infused with the echoes of his inner turmoil and newfound resolve. But beyond the veil of uncertainty, there simmered a burgeoning determination. As he took the platform, all thoughts of perfection slipped away. He stood poised, ready to embrace the moment that would either define or dismantle him. It was on this precipice of truth that David understood what mattered most wasn't perfection, it was authenticity. In that moment, he was ready to reveal not just his leadership but the essence of who he was becoming. And as he opened his mouth to speak, the world awaited his confession, one that could change everything. But just as he began, a forceful shout broke through the crowd, silencing him with a single question that left him momentarily stunned. Who would rise up, challenge him, and demand answers in ways he hadn't anticipated? The question sliced through the air like a dagger, leaving David momentarily paralyzed as the sheer audacity of it echoed in the arena of his mind. Do you actually care about your employees, or is this just a PR stunt? The words surged through him, igniting a crimson blush across his cheeks. The woman who had shouted stood at the front of the throng, arms crossed defiantly, a skeptical brow raised. This wasn't just an inquiry, it was a challenge, a testament to her watchful scrutiny. Her voice resonated, a shared sentiment among the crowd. As unseen doubts cascaded over him, David felt the heat rise not only from the moment at hand but from the very foundations of his leadership. He had expected discomfort, but this was raw disbelief. His resolve wavered briefly, heart pounding as he assessed the faces surrounding him, eager for drama, skepticism prevalent. His throat tightened, yet this could not be a moment of retreat. Taking a breath, he stood taller, realizing that this was not just about him, but about the culture he fostered. I understand your doubt, he responded, his voice steadying as he searched for authenticity in his message. I know our journey has been marred by mistakes. Today, I come not just to ask for your grace but to prove that we're committed to meaningful change. The moment stretched, silence enveloped the crowd briefly, as if contemplating the weight of his admission. David seized it, channeling every inch of his resolve into his words. We've made errors. But for every misstep, we are learning, evolving. It's not just about a polished facade, it's about standing up and being accountable. He caught the woman's gaze. The fierceness in her eyes softened momentarily, and that offered him a flicker of confidence to continue. I invite dialogue, not silence. I want you to hold us accountable. Our leadership needs to evolve, and that begins with openness, not just at this moment but moving forward. With each word, David could feel a long-standing barrier fracturing. This was a pivotal juncture, not just an opportunity for him to reclaim authority but to redefine it. For so long, he had chased approval, wearing the veneer of a perfect leader. However, within the discomfort, there lay strength, the strength of vulnerability, and now it shimmered beneath the surface. As questions continued to sift through, the challenge had ignited something different in David. He started addressing individuals rather than the whole, engaging their concerns, recognizing their humanity. In that exchange, the realization crystallized: this was not just a platform for defense. It was a genuine conversation. The more he offered sincerity, the more the crowd transformed from a mass of critics into constituents yearning for connection. The woman rephrased her question, seeking clarity on specific initiatives he would implement. David felt the certainty of the path ahead crystallizing. He thought of Max, his innocent curiosity, and the lessons urgent in his spirit. Moving forward, we will prioritize transparency regarding our team's successes and failures. Each bite of that truth will be a lesson. Together, we can build a stronger community built on trust. The words poured from him, fueled by passion rather than fear. In his mind, an image began to take shape. What if this moment became the catalyst for not only his growth but also for those surrounding him? The thought buzzed with electric potential. Could he turn their skepticism into advocacy? As he stepped down from the platform, he found inspiration in the eyes that met his. He could feel the shift in energy. Acceptance was beginning to bloom where skepticism had once thrived. In that vibrant exchange, something profound had taken root. David understood that leadership was an ongoing dialogue, one demanding dedication and shared experience, but just as he felt the tide begin to turn, the skepticism resurfaced. A member of the press shot up their hand, their question cutting through hope's nascent blossom. What will you do if your efforts fail? He inhaled deeply, the foundation of his newfound confidence shaking. In that moment, he confronted the very essence of his leadership journey, the unresolved potential of his own vulnerability. What could failure teach him this time? Would he embrace the lessons lying beneath it? As he looked out into the crowd, David recognized the palpable tension. A moment of truth awaited him. David's heart raced. The question hung in the air like a thundercloud, pregnant with anticipation and unspoken fears. What would he say? The words "what if my efforts fail?" echoed ominously in his mind, accompanied by the gnawing sensation of being on the precipice of his own potential. The crowd's expectant faces mirrored his internal conflict, and in that moment, he felt the gravity of his transformation. "Failure is not the end," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. "It's a potential outcome, of course. But I believe it isn't defined by my inability to meet expectations, it's how we respond to it." A ripple of intrigue flickered through the crowd, as if they leaned closer, curious now instead of skeptical. "I've failed before," he continued, deliberately choosing vulnerability. "But from those failures, I've learned to adapt. Every setback has been an opportunity to question my methods, to push through discomfort, and to emerge stronger. If my efforts falter, and I assure you I will work tirelessly to prevent that, I commit to an analysis and recalibration process." As he spoke, David envisioned how embracing potential failure could galvanize not only him but the entire team. What if this transparency about their imperfections fostered a culture of innovation? With each passing moment, he felt himself edging closer to the leader he had always yearned to be, one who inspired through authenticity rather than authority. That he caught the gaze of the woman who had first posed the challenging question. Her expression was a mixture of curiosity and cautious respect. Perhaps she sensed the shift within him too. "I want to create a space where failure is part of our learning paradigm," he asserted, rallying for a collective understanding. "Imagine when mistakes are recognized as stepping stones toward growth, rather than setbacks. This is a journey we undertake together." The crowd began to murmur, a chorus of hesitant agreement and curiosity, a stark contrast to the earlier skepticism. David sensed a synergy forming, where his fears melded with the possibility of shared resilience. But alongside it, doubts gnawed at him. Was he truly ready to navigate the risky waters of vulnerability? A fire ignited within, pushing him forward. Inspiration surged as he recounted a recent interaction with his son, Max, whose innocent perspective had much to teach him about growth. Max had stumbled through a new dance routine just moments before the event, a mix of enthusiasm and error, yet his delight had been uncontainable. In that moment, David realized the inherent beauty of struggle, the art of learning in motion. "Max dances, regardless of the applause," he said, vulnerability laying bare before the crowd. "And so should we." A soft murmur of agreement flowed through the audience. He felt the precarious balance between fear and courage shift slightly in his favor. David gained momentum, leaning into the collective energy of shared hope rather than individual uncertainty. With his heart ignited, he declared, "Let us dance, let us stumble, and learn to rise together." And just as he thought he might be gaining ground, a piercing gaze from the back of the crowd pulled at him. A familiar face emerged, an old colleague he had underappreciated during his ascent. The bitterness in that expression drew back his sense of progress, an unspoken accusation lingering in the air. The very embodiment of past misjudgments rose like a specter, confronting him with the truths he wished to avoid. "But will your actions reflect this newfound commitment?" The colleague shot back, raising a challenging brow. David felt the world momentarily constrict. This was no longer just about addressing a crowd, it was a reckoning with his past self. Would the transformation instigated in this moment hold when challenged with the ghosts of his previous decisions? His pulse quickened as he recognized this turning point, an invitation for authentic reflection and progressive determination. Could he ensure the sincerity of his path against the shadows looming behind him? As he prepared to respond, the air crackled with energy, the crowd's anticipation palpable. David's journey toward genuine leadership reached a critical juncture. Just outside his field of vision, he glimpsed the fire of something deeper, not just accountability, but redemption. What lay next could either build on this foundation or unravel it completely. Was he ready to face the reckoning awaiting him? David held the gaze of his colleague, feeling the weight of years of unspoken tension in the air. The directness of the question was a mirror reflecting his past decisions, and he could almost hear the echoes of dismissive words exchanged in quieter, less reflective times. It felt as if the crowd had faded, reducing to just the two of them, his past and his present grappling for dominance. Will your actions reflect this newfound commitment? The words resonated louder than the crowd itself, piercing through the facade he tried to uphold. What if it was true? What if his journey toward change was merely a flimsy ambition, incapable of withstanding the reality of his past? He took a breath, regathering himself, aware that the crowd was watching, eager to witness the unfolding drama. "You're right to question," he began, his voice gaining strength. "I've not always acted as I should. I've struggled and sometimes allowed my ambitions to overshadow the human connections within this organization. I can't change those moments, but I can change how I approach the future." The resolve in his tone surprised him that he had spent so long constructing a narrative of success, one that often slanted toward outcomes over the consideration of those impacted. But in this space, the shared human experience, there was an opportunity to reshape that narrative. "Leadership is not about being infallible," he continued, leaning into authenticity. "It's about being accountable. I vow to redefine what it means to lead alongside my team." Philosophies of leadership, transformative engagement, and vision cascaded from his mind, and he found himself revitalized by a conviction he had scarcely acknowledged before. Each word became a bridge from his past missteps toward a future filled with promise, the promise not just of success but of fostering meaningful connection. As his heart steadied, a flicker of vulnerability turned again towards empowerment. "I may not have always perceived the depth of my impact, but I see it now. I am committed to cultivating an environment where each member feels vital, not just to the success of the company but to the community we create together." A soft gasp rippled through the audience, and David seized the moment, feeling their curiosity deepen. "Failure must guide our evolution, but without collaboration, we are merely echoing our mistakes." As he spoke, he could sense the collective shift, a tentative transformation born of hope. However, apprehension twisted inside him. Words came easily, but actions would demand more. How could he ensure this shift was lasting? Would he falter under the weight of accountability? He glanced toward Max's earlier lessons and tried to tether that thought into concrete strategies. "I know there's power in transparency," he said, remembering the time he had clumsily handled a project that hurt his team rather than helping them grow. "From now on, I'll share not only my successes but also my missteps. I want us to learn collectively, even when it's uncomfortable." He noticed a few nods in the crowd, the seeds of a shared vision finally taking root, yet, amongst the soft murmur of agreement, the dismissive gaze of his colleague remained fixed with skepticism. Despite the uplifting tide he sought to sail, David couldn't shake the sense that one critical component was still missing: the need to confront his own insecurities laid bare by this challenge. With the room buzzing from the discussion, there could easily be distractions, but in the depths of his thoughts, a realization fused clarity with purpose. "How do I plan to prove my commitment?" David felt the question thrum in his chest, and a resolute decision crystallized, one that would ground him while he contended with those shadows. "I will start a transparent feedback loop with my team. Every week, we'll gather to acknowledge wins, discuss setbacks honestly, and strategize moving forward together." He paused for a moment, stirring the crowd's anticipation once more. "This isn't just about what I can lead, it's about what we can build together." The challenge was palpable. Would his team embrace this shift? Would he withstand the scrutiny of critics, both external and internal? The crowd's expressions were shielded by intrigue, but David sensed the pressure inside himself building. It was one thing to express commitment and quite another to actualize it in the face of overcoming fear and doubt. A storm of uncertainty brewed, waiting for his next move. Would he rise to this pivotal challenge or drown in the weight of past expectations? David took a deep breath, grounding himself in the present. He felt the weight of transformation pressing against him. It sparked an urgency to act rather than just speak. This was not merely a moment of defense, it was an opportunity to redefine his legacy, to mold himself as a father and a leader with real substance. As he refocused on the crowd, he could see their expressions shift from skepticism to curiosity. This was not the same David they had known. The tentative hope in the air felt tangible, almost electric. "Together, we will create a culture rooted in transparency and accountability," he asserted, his voice growing steadier with each declaration. "I commit not only to addressing our mistakes but also to embracing the lessons they offer. We will evolve collectively, redefining what success means." The room transformed, breaths felt synchronized, driven by a newfound camaraderie forming in the open space. David caught the eye of the woman who had originally challenged him, and her wariness seemed to fade slightly, replaced with a flicker of recognition. She understood now this wasn't about perfection, it was about genuine commitment. "Let us implement regular meetings where we celebrate our achievements, no matter how small, and openly discuss our challenges," he continued, excitement infusing his tone. "It's imperative we foster an environment where everyone has a voice. Ideas should flow freely without fear of ridicule." He felt that a shift was occurring, and as he spoke, his resolve solidified. David knew he was not merely challenging the status quo of his company, he was embodying the change he wanted to see. The energy in the room morphed into a shared narrative, intertwining their individual aspirations with organizational goals. "I envision a workplace that mirrors a family, a system where, just like at home, we support one another unconditionally," he elaborated. "Just as I want my son Max to grow in an environment of love and openness, I desire the same for all of you." Applause began to ripple through the audience, and it filled him with a sense of belonging he had long yearned for. Recognition from those he had previously shielded from his true self proved to be heartfelt validation. The essence of leadership was steadily crystallizing into view, yet beneath the applause, the familiar pulse of uncertainty threaded through his mind. He was fully aware that words alone were insufficient, action demanded proof of commitment. The backdrop of his corporate empire loomed large, testing the foundation of trust he sought to build. Later, as he returned to his office, the exhilaration of the speech lingered, but it was coupled with a stark realization this was just the beginning. He sat at his desk, pen hovering over a blank notepad, pondering the strategies that would need to effectuate his promises. Would he truly work towards integrating his familial love into his professional life? The juxtaposition of his previous rigidity against the vulnerability he had just exhibited danced in his thoughts. The next few days passed in a flurry of activity. He met with Derek and others within the company, gathering ideas for how to weave their dialogue into actionable steps. They began drafting a community-driven initiative, one that involved team-building exercises, transparency platforms, and focused discussions, cultivating a rich, supportive culture. Boyhood ideals meeting corporate realities. As deadlines approached, David recommitted to family as well. He began attending Max's piano lessons, witnessing not just the growth of his son but his bond with Naomi. Each note echoed with a clarity he had long sought. The music resonated, joining the threads of both his personal and professional aims. Here, amidst the laughter and joy, he felt secure in his choice to embrace vulnerability. One standout evening, as Max played a sonatina he had been practicing, David felt unshackled from his past identity. "You're getting better every day, buddy," he cheered, his face lighting up with pride. This moment was no longer an afterthought amidst business dealings, it now stood as the pinnacle of his success. Days turned to weeks, and the transformations began to crystallize across the company. From weekly check-ins to restructuring feedback loops, employees started participating more openly. The culture morphed visibly, cynicism melted away in the face of authenticity. Each small instance of collaboration felt monumental, forming a new ethos defined by trust and support. While media inquiries regarding the scandal continued to arise, David stood resolute, confidently facing challenges armed with the integrity he had cultivated. They established a robust media strategy together that communicated their commitment to transparency and responsibility. In meetings where previous discussions would have been fraught with tension, David's newfound approach felt liberating. Instead of lecturing from a supposed position of supremacy, he invited discussions, encouraged critical questioning, and relished the collective exploration of ideas. Collaboration reigned supreme. As he navigated his dual roles, that of an evolving leader and a devoted father, he recognized the profound impact this alignment brought to both his personal and professional lives. Each interaction, whether at home with Max or at work with his team, now radiated a shared commitment to growth, integration, and resilience. Later that year, as the results poured in, David received an internal award, Leader of the Year, acknowledging his contributions to fostering an interconnected workplace. Acceptance felt automatic, and he dedicated the award to his team and, notably, to Naomi and Max. There, in a room filled with applause, David found a sense of fulfillment, knowing he had truly received the recognition he sought, not for accolades alone, but for the very transformation he had instigated. In that moment, as he looked at smiling faces welcoming him into their circle of trust, he realized all he had accomplished transcended wealth. It spoke to what it meant to be effective, to rise beyond failure, and embrace humanity wholeheartedly. David had conquered the chaos within, forged an unbreakable bond between fatherhood and leadership, and established a legacy steeped in authenticity and accountability. He could confidently embrace his life in its entirety, knowing that the connections he fostered would extend far beyond the superficial metrics of success, perpetuating in both his career and family life for generations to come. As he walked through the hallways of his company, he felt a deep-seated satisfaction wash over him. He was a different man, a more grounded father, a more empathetic leader. The monumental journey of transformation had borne fruit, cultivated through vulnerability and empathy, and they were merely at the precipice of an expansive new horizon. For anyone seeking true transformation in their lives, this was an invitation to join that journey, to confront challenges, and to emerge stronger. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.